This is Paul from Apex Mindset. When you're done subscribing to my channel and hitting the notification bell and liking the video, I want you to go to the description and send me an email so that I can get you signed up for the Rule Zero conference that takes place October 2nd and 3rd. It's going to be all over Zoom, remote. We're going to have 10 speakers with a ton of information, a lot of value for the money. So if you buy tickets from me, I can make sure you get hooked up with the Zoom links, and if you have any trouble, I can help manage that if you run into any issues getting logged on. And I want to make sure you get some FaceTime with me too at the event, not just in Q&As and breakout sessions, but if there's anything that you're stuck on and I can help you with, I'd be glad to just talk with you that weekend. So hopefully this fits your schedule and you can see me there. Today we're going to talk about sexual imprinting. Now, sexual imprinting is a really important concept, actually, that helps you understand things like hypergamy, and it helps you understand why things like frame control and game and some of the things we talk about on this channel are so important when it comes to courting and seducing women and having productive relationships if you're into the long-term relationship thing. What is sexual imprinting? Well, sexual imprinting is the learning of mate preferences by direct observation or experiences of the phenotype of another member of the population. Phenotype is another word for characteristics, okay? So based on what she looks at and experiences out in the sexual marketplace, that can frame what characteristics or things she's going to be attracted to. For example, if I'm given the choice between big breasts or a bigger butt and a thin waist, I'm going to pick the bigger butt, thin waist. That's me, where another dude might pick the bigger breast. And there's reasons why all of those things are those characteristics are attractive, but my preferences may have to do with imprinting from growing up and from some of my sexual experiences. That's basically how to describe imprinting. Now, imprinting evolves by gender based on which gender is selecting for good genes. We know based on Brifault's law that women are the selectors and they select for the most genetically fit. If anyone wants to tell you that hypergamy isn't true or isn't a proven concept, Brifault's law and imprinting theory proves hypergamy because we've demonstrated through studies and research that women are the selectors and women are selecting for the most genetically fit mates that they can find, and that they're attracted to, at least sexually and for mating purposes, genetic fitness, and they're always looking for that in those traits and characteristics. Whereas men are much more general. We have preferences, but we're pretty general and broad in what those preferences may or may not be. Men will essentially gladly have sex with almost anything, whereas women will have sex, but they're going to have sex with the best that they can find. And we see that proven time and time again, even in evolutionary psychology and in the sciences when we look at issues of sexual imprinting and Brifault's law. Now, imprinting had mostly been studied from looking at parents and caretakers, and they found that girls are susceptible to being sexually attracted to mates that have traits of their fathers. So they say women are attracted to their fathers, and that's a Freudian thing, but that's somewhat true according to imprinting theory. And the reason they believe that is because their fathers were able to mate, right? So their fathers proved their genetic fitness by mating and having them. So a quick, easy way to vet out if somebody is genetically fit enough to mate is if they have similar traits of their biological father. And this will gross out many women oftentimes when they find out that some boyfriend that they had the tingles for, they embarrassingly find out later after the relationship's dissolved and they no longer have the tingles, that guy was basically just like their dad. So that was pretty gross and disgusting when they figure this out. But there is a genetic reason to have a draw to somebody who has those traits or characteristics. Again, that father proved genetic fitness by mating with somebody and having them. They studied this a lot with just observational imprinting. But when fetishes came about and people had fetishes, they realized that it's not just imprinting that happens with observing or seeing a characteristic, but of course it stands to reason that imprinting would be even more powerful with an experience. There was some level of observational imprinting when people would have these strange attractions to different fetishes. Now, some fetishes make more sense from a evolutionary perspective than others, but you can have things that are completely seem very sexually unrelated, like guys that are obsessed with women's shoes. Shoes are not particularly sexual, but they've associated this object, this non-sexual object really, with the act of arousal, and there's some imprinting that is going on there. And if they've had experiences with women's shoes where there was sexual feelings and orgasms and things of that nature, now that becomes an experience that continues to propagate that imprinting. We're not going to get much into fetishes in this video, but looking at that and looking at some of these other factors, we know now that experiences cause the imprinting as well, especially with women, as women are the sexual selectors. Now let's look at selecting women based and why their experiences matter. This is why things like notch count, this is why what they do during their party years before they settle down makes a difference. So let's say a woman has had sex with 35 men. That's not a particularly high notch count anymore for women born after 1990. She has those experiences. Those 35 men and those experiences have imprinted her sexually. She got the tingles and got, we'll say, wet from each of those guys and had an experience revolving around that. Now, not all those experiences necessarily ended well, but don't let them tell you that they were all terrible either. Unless she was being sexually assaulted by 35 different people, and even then, it's another topic for another day. Don't let her convince you that these were just terrible experiences. At some point in that experience, at least, maybe it left her unsatisfied, or maybe it wasn't as good as she thought, but at points in that experience, those were pleasurable to her. And those experiences imprinted her and framed and imprinted what her sexual proclivities, attractions, and what level that they would need to get to experience satisfaction. Because as we know from hypergamy and what we know about women is they don't go backwards. Let's pretend that her experience was, and this is a common thing, let's say in college she's had a guy that she was just banging and she did a couple threesomes with that guy. And then she gets in a relationship with you because she sees you as fit to be a beta provider or whatever, or maybe she does see you as the alpha guy. And she has in her paradigm, well, I'm not going to have a threesome with a guy I'm going to be in a long-term relationship with. So you hear that argument all the time, right? Here's the problem with that. She's been imprinted by the guy and the threesomes that she's had previously. For you to override that imprinting to be her truly seen as her sexual best, you have to somehow override that experience. How are you going, which was likely a pleasurable experience for her? How are you going to override that if she refuses to have a threesome with you because you're in a commitment and that's her paradigm, but she was gladly had that in college with this other person? So from a hypergamous perspective, you won't override that imprinting, probably, in theory. And she'll hold on to that experience as a separate, wonderful, better, best, whatever. It's an apple orange maybe, but she'll hold on to that experience, and experiences with you may or may not be that exciting. It puts another wedge in that commitment. It gives her, it's one data point that's a pretty major one actually, that could mean that she doesn't see you as her sexual best. How could she if she was willing to do these things with this other person but not you, right? Now there's a lot more that goes into it, but the point is you can see now the problem with the experiences that these women put themselves through and have in their hedonistic behavior, given the way society promotes that for women now, how this then gets in the way with pair bonding later. Essentially, you have to re-imprint her. If you're going to have a long-lasting relationship with her, you have to imprint her in such a way that all of these other experiences are essentially erased or non-existent or inconsequential. Her sexual arousal is pointing towards you rather than pointing towards or preferring something else that you are unable to provide for her. If you expect it to work out with her, if for anything long term, anything besides just having sex and having fun and sitting around her way, you have to be able to re-imprint all of these things. Now, it can be done, but you're going to struggle if, and I don't know truly how you're going to re-imprint, let's say, a threesome experience without having the threesome. Well, I have some ideas, but will they actually work or not? A lot of this depends on the impact of those experiences as well. But you can see the problems that some of these things propose. Imprinting is a very real thing. There's been studies to show that women hold on to DNA when a guy ejaculates inside of her, no condom. She has DNA from every guy's sperm in her body, imprinting even and infecting potentially her next pregnancy. Imprinting is a real thing, and imprinting will set the sexual framework for your relationship with her. And this is also why you need to go pay attention to my series, and I'll put it in a playlist probably next week. Pay attention to my series on frame control, because you have to execute frame control with a level of savagery that's never been experienced before in human history, and you need to provide these peak experiences for her within the context of your relationship. This way you can imprint her in such a manner that it erases or undoes or overrides the imprinting from previous experiences. If you can't do that, your relationship's going to fail. It might fail because she's bored with you, or she cheats or breaks up, or she thinks she sees something better, or it might fail because she sticks with you and resents you for not being able to provide the excitement that she's had in her past, and that she then turns into the nagging, asexual, uninterested, unpleasant to be around wife or long-term girlfriend. Either way, those are failures. So you need to understand this imprinting thing. There's a lot in the sciences written about it, but we don't talk about it very often, but this is an important piece. I just wanted to introduce you to the topic. This could be hours of a conversation because there's so much to be said about it. But as an introduction, hopefully now you have a better understanding of imprinting and how it affects the sexual decisions of the women that you pick. Thanks again for the support.